So, just so people know, this is not an official council meeting of any sort. I believe it was Sterling a few weeks ago. Come on up, Sterling. You're on It was.
I didn't want to get on.
It was Sterling a few weeks ago come up and asked if he wanted to address, if he could address council, and so I guess we got to thinking that some of the other candidates may also wish to do the same thing. So again, thank you, Sterling, for putting that tidbit in and getting this going. Now, this is obviously the first time this municipality has ever had a chance to do this. So we'll take notes on what works, what didn't work, and if we all have the opportunity in 4 years' time, I guess, to do it again, then maybe we can do something a little bit differently to make it better. I do thank you folks for showing up tonight. It's kind of rainy and dark out there, and very much appreciated. Like I say, the way it's going to work is council had sent in some questions. A lot of them were very similar, so what I did was summarize the questions up as best as I could. There are 8 of them, and then just the last one will be, you know, it's always that same old one. Why are you the man we should vote for? Or you and your party. All the candidates were invited. The People's Alliance, Sterling, the Liberal Party, Chris, were very quick on the draw yeah, we'll be there. The Green Party was invited several times, and we got no contact whatsoever from the Green Party. And Mr. Ames, the Progressive Conservative Party, got back to Susie yesterday, and his response was that he would meet with council if he was fortunate enough to win the election. I guess I don't know why you wouldn't want to show up and address the population, but such as it is. So. Now I asked Chris when we'll get at it here. You got to remember the Maple Leafs play tonight, so we can't take too long here.
I can already tell you how that's going to end.
They're playing Montreal. I know how it's going to end. Yeah. All right. I'd asked Chris, and since there's only the 2 folks, I'll start with one person, and then next question they'll get the first opportunity to respond. And the questions are essentially municipal. I think they're all municipal questions on that would affect the municipality and that would affect the people living in the municipality. All right. So I'll go with Chris on the first question. Okay, and then the same thing to Sterling. Lakeland Ridges is a small community consisting of approximately 2,600 residents and 2 staff. Since government reform, a number of our residents have experienced an over 16% increase in their property taxes in the last 2 years. The province is continuing to download more services onto the municipalities and the Regional Service Commission. And I'm sure most people know, but the Regional Service Commission is another level of government in between the municipality and the federal. And they also had, I think, 3 or 4 new mandates downloaded onto Western Valley. So there's just a lot of new stuff coming down to the service commissions and to the municipalities. I got to read the questions and I'll get off it. Property taxes cannot fund these present and probably future services that will be required of municipalities. An independent study last year by 2 New Brunswick economists predicted that 1/3 of local governments would find themselves in a question spot because they were too small, having a property tax base below 300 million and a population of less than 4,000. The question is to Chris and People's Alliance. God, I forgot your name there for a second. Question: how are small municipalities like Lakeland Ridges, who are already struggling, expected to cover these increased costs?
Okay. So, thank you very much, Your Worship. Sterling for coming out. You missed the other candidates, which is shameful, and thank you for each and every one of you guys for coming out here. My name is Chris Duffy, and I'm glad to be up here today. Now, we all know that, with the amalgamation of all these communities is pretty challenging. There's been hurdles along the way. Truly, they haven't looked far enough ahead to give the funds to the municipalities to accommodate the mandated positions they have to have filled. This is to where we, not just myself, but we have to go back to all the property tax components and actually, working with the municipalities and making sure that the funds are distributed so the municipalities can accommodate. But there's also, the whole tax reform has to take place because we have a lot of newcomers moving in, property taxes going up, there's a balance there. But we have to make sure that we actually look at how the money's being spent. I know the municipality will do a great job with it, but there's where we have to communicate with the municipalities, which isn't happening. Hence, we've got an empty chair here to actually find out exactly what the requirements are. I do know that, the new positions that are mandated because it's now a municipality, is quite high and quite heavy and harsh on the tax base. But they haven't distributed all the property tax fairly amongst not just this municipality, but other municipalities, because I've heard this request from other municipalities within this Carleton-York. I mean, there are challenges out there that have not been addressed. So how are we going to do that? Well, I'm not privy to all that information just yet, because not in government. But when we are, I expect to sit down with council so I can see the books on both sides to make sure that because municipalities have a great influence on how taxes are generated through the property tax. But we also have to make sure that those taxes are spent in the community, because you have to deal with, your fire. You've got to deal with your policing, and policing's challenging out in rural New Brunswick. I mean, one number I do know, we're spending well over $700,000 on policing out here in rural New Brunswick, just in this area. And you know what, it's challenging because crime is going up, for one thing. So we've got to take a look at how the province is actually investing into our policing. We got to see where our taxes are being spent directly, and they need to actually end up back in the community. I mean, you've got just on policing, you've got your garbage removal, you got stipends for your counselor, you got buildings to deal with. This all comes out of you. This all comes out of us. And the money's got to be spent in our regions. But until we get, and I believe we're all going to be in this position because we're not privy to this, and we haven't been brought to the table. I feel Lakeland rural community has not been brought to the table to actually get, it's all requests, but there's no responses back. This has got to change. Your representative as a counselor, how much time do we have to speak? Or okay, I'm almost done.
Not that long.
Okay. We have to be at the table, so we get requests, and your MLA has to be fighting for you. And that means by picking up the phone, showing up, taking the calls, coming to tough spots. We've got to keep the communication going. So we know tax reform has to happen. Do I know all the details of that yet? Absolutely not. But it is in our platform because we have tax people there that are ready to dive into this thing. Because this is a little outside my personal scope, but I've got a good idea what needs to be done. That's all I can say on that one. Thank you.
Sterling, do you need me to repeat that, or?
No, we're good.
First of all, thank you everybody for coming. I really appreciate this opportunity to address you. Municipal reform. What a fun ride this has been. I was in the legislature, I was working down there when this was introduced. Everybody, except the current government, asked the same question: what's the rush? Do you have all the information? Have you consulted with people? Oh yeah, we've done all that. We consulted with you. You were all consulted, right? No? Oh, okay. They should have been that. They said you were. It was a poorly thought out idea from the get-go. I have been sounding the alarm about that forever. It was poorly thought out. It was poorly rolled out. It's being poorly implemented. And I think it's been quite misleading as to what the objectives of it was. This wasn't about democracy, bringing these little communities together and giving us the right to elect a council and a mayor. This was about downloading the expenses from Blaine Hicks' books to your books. And that's what it was about, that in a nutshell. The only problem is, is that it's not gonna work. Because little municipalities like ours are never going to be able to cover the costs that are being imposed on them. With the tax base that exists in this municipality, it can't be done. So we have to go back, and we have to have somebody in Fredericton who's gonna go to the government, regardless of who it is, and say, look guys, I hate to tell you this, but you're nuts. This isn't gonna work. And we need to sit down and we need to make some arrangements and some back and forth and whatever. There's no place, you guys couldn't possibly raise the money that they're gonna expect you to spend. And if you do, you're gonna be spending it where you don't have a say as to where it goes, and you need a say. That was the whole purpose of this, so you would have a voice. Well, by the time they get done shaking the piggy bank, you're not gonna have to worry about what you guys have to worry, spend, because you're not gonna have anything. It was bad from the get-go, it's bad today, it's gonna be bad tomorrow. If we get a Higgs majority government, then all I can say is good luck to all of us, buckle up, because it's gonna be a hell of a ride.
Good to go.
All right, thank you. Okay, second question, and I think Chris sort of touched on it, but the second question is being able to communicate and have our concerns addressed by our council officials, our provincial officials is very important to the residents and to our municipality. The question is simply, how would your party and yourself plan on communicating with both residents and council of Lakeland Ridges? Sir?
Well,
So far to date, I've distributed over 6,000 flyers to virtually every household in this riding. It's got my phone number on it. It's got my email on it. Those aren't a government email or phone number. They're my email and my phone number. And I've lived here all my life, and I'm not a hard person to get hold of or to track down. And one thing I will not do is I'll never dodge anybody. If they have a concern or a question and they want an answer, they will get it. It might not be the answer you want, but it'll be the truth, and I won't leave you out hanging, and I'll get back to you. Communication is vital. We need to have good communication between Fredericton and the municipality and vice versa. You need a representative that's going to take your voice to Fredericton. You don't need a part-time representative to bring Fredericton's voice to you. That's not how democracy works. That's not what this is supposed to be all about. You elect somebody to represent you. That's your job. And when you do that job, then their job becomes being your voice. And communication has to stay open. It has to be there. To send repeated requests for information or whatever to your sitting MLA and get no response, that's not acceptable. That's not their job. They're derelict in their duty, and they need to be held accountable for that. So anyway, give me a buzz. My phone number's on every flyer you put in.
Ditto. No, literally, every sheet of paper I put out is my cell phone number. You want to call? We're there. As long as we have cell phone signal. That's the biggest challenge out in front of the cell phones. But you know what? I've returned every call and every email. That's my job. That's what I do. That's what I do in business. If you call, out of respect to the call, you get a call back, and we figure out what's going on. You have to. We have our current representative that's not here. That's not respectful. You people requested us to be here. We're here. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Showing up for the breakfasts, say hello, bumble around, maybe serve a pancake or two. You know what? You have town council. Give me a call. We're there. If when you want me, I'll show up. It's what I do. It's what I do in my own life. So what I'm not going to change anything. I'm just going to keep doing that. Having a voice means listening. I got 2 ears and 1 mouth, except for today. It's almost like 2. But you know what? You got to listen twice as much as you speak. You have to get information so we can go back to downtown Fredericton, to the ledge, and actually bring your concerns forward. If we don't do that, what are we doing here? If we don't represent ourselves and be represented, we're wasting, we've got to do this, or we'd be wasting our time. And I don't like wasting time. I like to take challenges, back to the party, back to the ledge, and get things resolved. because you know what, if you wanna get something done, you give it to somebody who's busy, you keep a flow going, it's engagement. And it's not necessarily on my terms, it's gotta be on your terms also. It's symbiotic, so we gotta keep these doors open. So cell phones, emails, knock on my door, accessibility. We gotta keep this going, because if we don't, like I say, we're not gonna get anything done. Thank you.
So basically, I think what we heard from both you gentlemen is that you want to take our concerns to Fredericton, not Fredericton's concerns to us.
Absolutely.
More or less than a,
That's the job, that's what it's supposed to be.
all right, fair enough.
And show up.
Yeah, that'll be next, yep. Okay. Third question, healthcare is a major concern for our residences. No family doctors for many, long hours, waiting in emergency rooms. Lakeland has space in Canterbury that was designed and available to support an after-hours clinic. Question, what suggestions do you have on how we can find a doctor, nurse practitioner for our area? And what would your commitment be to Lakeland Council that you would work with them on this very important issue? Chris, you go first.
There we go. Well, actually, just last night, we were up in St. John with my wife. You know, she's working on her master's in healthcare policy. And actually, she won a little grant because she presented to the hospital region concerning collaborative healthcare clinics. She's putting together a study to make sure that the doctors, because doctors have to have a buy-in to these collaborative clinics. So, I only heard tell of the clinic that was in Canterbury. I never saw it, didn't know anything about it, I only heard about it. I know we just recently announced, you know, in the Woodstock area, a collaborative healthcare clinic, because Marissa Pelkey, working with the community, the municipality, they get the signatures, they get the space, and they're ready to go. And they've got the doctors in place, ready to go. I know in Nakowick, because this has been brought to my attention, we want to do that in Nakowick also. So, how do we make this happen? A municipal request comes in, and then we look at the space. We get some signatures, and we have to get doctors and your nurse practitioners, other healthcare workers involved. Because it's just not those people, it's also the administrative assistants also. Because when you have a doctor working, if they have an 8-hour day, they're spending 2 or 3 hours just on paperwork. With the collaborative healthcare clinic model, where there's several people working on this, you get, you know, doctors don't really want to be doing paperwork all the time. They want to be serving you, the patients. So that has to take place. So the location, I don't know. I live in George Mills, in the Macquac area. I've been to your breakfasts, I've been to a lot of events, but I've never walked into the location. And so I don't know what the location goes at, so I would be at a disadvantage, you know, saying, well, this is a great spot. Not knowing if there's enough time, I mean, we could have a portable clinic, a clinic that comes here maybe 2 days a week. I don't know yet. We have to look at the adjoining regions also, because, you know, going to Woodstock is not that far, even though it may not be ideal. Going to Nakowick's not that far, but we got to get people out of primary care, using the emergency room as their, to go get your prescriptions filled, to go get your blood pressure. So this is all part of a rollout throughout the region, and like I say, Woodstock with just one announcement of a location, but there's to where, as a team, you bring a plan. Where working with the municipality comes into play. We can actually work on making that happen out here. Now, do I know if it's going to be a full-time one out right here? No, I'm not the expert. But working with the experts and doctor buy-in, get your nurse practitioners, your psychologists, psychiatrists, you know, maybe, you know, people in chiropractor, dietitians, coming out to the region, maybe not on a 7 day a week, but, you know, so it's predictable. And you can actually come here and get things done, so you don't have to go into town to go get your prescriptions. You can plan on, let's say, Thursday of every second week, you can come get your prescriptions filled. Above and beyond, able to go to your other clinics. I like to see clinics set up, and this is what we've been talking about, is when you move into an area, you're not assigned a doctor, you're assigned a clinic, and they've got your information. there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes, you know, data infrastructure to make this stuff happen. I mean, we gotta get cell phone signal and better internet, but you know what, that's all part of the process. So, as things go forward, I would need your input. They would do a feasibility study, which shouldn't take very long, because the studies are going on, but for this particular area, if we chose Canterbury, we have to look at the distance from Woodstock and Nackwood, because, you know, sometimes we have to take a look at, we may put more money in the Nackwood Health Center or the Woodstock Health Center to accommodate everybody out here also. But those are just possible ideas, but this comes not from this guy, it comes from you people. Thank you.
I think every person in this room tonight probably knows what a crisis that our healthcare system is in. I probably couldn't tell you anything that you don't already know. But the fix is gonna, first of all, it's gonna take money. We have to invest in our healthcare system. It has been neglected far too long. The current government, rather than putting money into programs with a plan in place prior to that was actually gonna bring healthcare forward, decided to go with a thing like the nurses program, which has cost us an incredible amount of money and solved nothing. That money's gone. Most of it went to corporations in Ontario and stuff that were the headhunters for the nurses. All that money did not go in the nurses' pockets. The majority of that money went into the pockets of the businesses who recruited the nurses. That's not a good use of healthcare dollars. We have to fix the system right from the ground up. We don't have enough of anything right now. Clinics in the communities would be nice. But if we don't have doctors and we don't have nurses, who's gonna work in these clinics? We need a recruitment and a retention policy in place that's actually going to attract people to this province and keep them there. I would not be adverse myself to helping young people go to school and take these medically related courses and pay for it as a government, with the understanding that if we pay for your education, you would be obligated contractually to work in New Brunswick for a period of time. It would vary. I would expect a doctor maybe to spend a little longer in New Brunswick than I would in LPN because of the cost difference and the time difference or whatever for that training. But we have to get the people on the ground first. And once we have the resources in place, the human resources, we can look at doing more of these clinics. The model of the clinics is very good. We met with the Medical Association. Our party leader and I met with them a good part of half a day. They know what they want and they know what will work, but they're not being listened to, and they need to be listened to. No problem is ever going to be solved if you don't listen to the people who understand the file best. We have to do that, and that hasn't happened. It hasn't happened for a long time. We've had a government that has ignored these people, that has tried to intimidate them, bully them, undervalue them, tell them if they don't like it here, go to Alberta. That's not respect, and these people deserve respect, and we have to give it to them, and we have to invest in them. And I think if we do that, the problem did not come overnight. It won't be fixed overnight. I can remember back when my hair was still brown, when the nurses were talking about a nursing shortage. We were going to have a nursing shortage soon, and the government needed to do something. They needed to address that. That was 30 years ago, and we still have a nursing shortage, and it's worse. And nurses in New Brunswick are leaving the profession at the youngest age of any province in Canada, about 35 and a half years. That's a little early to be retired or thinking about a career move or change. But we have to, long term, we have to invest in the system. We have to get the people on the ground. We have to have them educated. We have to have them in place. Looking at foreign nationals to try to get their accreditation done a little faster would help. Maybe alleviate some of that. And then we can look at bringing more clinics to smaller communities. The clinic idea is good, and they're popping up in quite a few places, and we should avail ourselves of those. The one that was in Canterbury part-time was once a week or once every 2 weeks. When Dr. O'Leary was down there. How often did she come?
Once a week.
Okay, all right, well, that was good. And I know for a fact that it helped a lot of people, and a lot of people benefited from that. And perhaps we could do that again, one night a week. It saved seniors a lot of travel. I know that I've heard that she took on a number of patients she probably didn't really need, but she did it because she knew that they needed her. So she did it, and God bless her for it. But first we get the resources on the ground, we invest in the system, we we start addressing the key issues of recruitment and retention, so we actually have critical mass of people that we need. Then we start using those resources where we can get the most bang for our buck. And the community aspect of this is very important. It should expand, it will expand, and I would love to work with the Department of Health and the community to make sure that we could get the best medical service that we possibly could in this community. I don't know what that would be, but we know what we need, and what we need to find out is what we can get, and work together. We gotta start working together to solve these. We can't depend on the government to solve it for us, because clearly they've showed they don't want to. So we gotta take that job in their own hands to some degree, and work as communities and councils and whatever to get these things moving, to hold their feet to the fire, to start getting some results, because I'm not getting any younger. I got a lot more sunrises behind me than I do ahead of me. And I'd like to see this at least reasonably well solved before it's too late. It is in crisis. It is. It absolutely is. And we need to put the brakes on that and start to turn it around. It's an expensive process. It's a long-term process. There's going to be lots of bumps along the road, but we have to have the will to tackle that, to stick with it until you get some results over time. And we just do the best we can and hope that we can get it done as fast as possible, because the need is great. So.
Can I just add one thing about retention?
Sure.
Okay. There's one thing that's going on out there is the lack of retention and recruiting nurses, doctors. It does boil down to a lot to do with money. Now we spent $173 million on travel nurses. You mentioned that. You know what? Our government is looking at giving every nurse in the province a $10,000 retention. Every nurse. And that only comes up to about $73 million to keep our nurses here. And that, that's like a signing bonus. You know what, that sounds like a lot of money, but it's half the cost of, recruiting travel nurses. Which is crazy. So we tend to, this current government has spent way more on sending money outside of the province to Quebec and Ontario versus on our people here, which doesn't make sense to us. So there's something that, it doesn't make sense. What are the real facts? What are the real deals? Sterling, you made reference to why are we not bringing or spending our money on our own people? Well, you know what? We need to give nurses also, and our nurses, full-time positions. Not the part-time stuff where you don't get any benefits. You don't get any, you don't get your own health care. You don't get, sick time. We've got to give them full-time. We're demanding this. Now, I'm a director of the Atlantic College of Applied Health Sciences. We train PSWs, person support workers. And we get them trained, we get them ready to go. We get lots of people that want to hire them, but we got a lot of organizations, nursing homes that don't have the funds to hire them, but they want them. And we really need to get, moving up, to the level of you got to have a livable wage, because some of these jobs are very tough, and proper recruitment, just like let's give the nurses a bonus to keep them here. Give solicitation and recruiting. We got to be in the ballpark. I mean, if Nova Scotia, PEI are doing it, well, you know what? We're 10 or 20% below them. So what's the incentive for a young person getting started, living here in New Brunswick, versus it's only a couple hours to go from Nova Scotia or PEI, and to make that much more. And once you get landed, if you're a young person for 4, 5, 6 years, you're not moving. That's where you live. So yes, I just wanted to add that component and give the example of this current government will spend more money outside of this province to bring people into it versus paying for people that are actually living here to get them up to a livable wage. Thank you.
Did you hear Sterling? Do you have anything more you want to add, or are you good?
Well, the only thing I was thinking about was that you had just mentioned Nova Scotia and PEI. We also face the challenge of having our nurses recruited from the United States as well. All along the St. John River Valley, they go over to Calais, they go over to Holton, they go over to Presque Isle. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? They're being better treated, far better paid, A far better working environment. That's hard to compete with. We have to at least level the playing field, or these people are gonna continue to leave. And none of us can blame for doing so, because just like everybody else, they have one life. And they want a good quality life for themselves and for their families and whatever. They wanna get their debts paid, they wanna be able, you know. So we have to be competitive in that regard, not just monetarily, but also the kind of lifestyle and whatever, and the workload and everything else that goes with that we're foisting upon these people. And if we're not, they're just going elsewhere. And again, why wouldn't they?
And just to be, people, we're probably, although we would not turn down a full-fledged community clinic without a doubt if anybody wanted to, we would be quite happy if we could get back to what we had with Dr. Leary one day a week. And just to show the need, some of you folks probably know more than I do. I believe people were coming from Fredericton to Dr. Leary's office, which demonstrates the need that is out there for clinics, and even maybe for a few more of these after-hour clinics in the smaller
And
communities.
why was the, why
Okay,
was that?
can we get back to, at
Why
the end of
closed?
it, you folks all will have a chance to, put the questions up. Okay, next one, number 4, affordable housing is needed in our municipality that has 40% of the population 55 years of age and older. I think if we go around the room tonight, we probably are pretty close to the demographics, okay? A housing strategy that includes aging in place, long-term care accessibility, etc. Most live on fixed incomes, and it may be challenging for them to remain in their homes, although aging in place is probably the desire for most of us. The question: what are your thoughts and commitment to providing affordable housing options that would include both aging at home and alternatives if residents cannot stay in their own home? Sterling, I believe you go first this time.
Well, there's no question that all of us would like to stay in our own homes for as long as we could. Right now, our hospital beds are being taken up by elderly who are no longer sick. They do not need to be in the medical system, but they have no place for them. They have no place for them to go. There's really 3, the most expensive option is hospital care, incredibly expensive. The next most expensive is nursing home. The cheapest alternative, when it's feasible, is for people to stay at home. And that is exactly what most people who are able to want to do, but some can't because they need a little bit of assistance. They don't need 24-hour care, but they need some help. They might need a caretaker or homemaker to come in 2 or 3 times a week. Whatever, each case is different, it would have to be evaluated. But that is not only the cheapest option, it is the preferred option for a lot of seniors. They want to stay in their homes as long as they can. As long as it's safe and as long as it can be done, that's where they want to be, and it's where they should be. So some more has to, again, I hate to keep coming back to this, but we have to invest. We have to spend some money. Homemakers, I don't know, I've known several of them. My mother-in-law, we had one for her for 7 years. They do not make a decent wage. And the turnover in that profession is incredible. Some of them didn't even get gas money. If you're gonna ask these people to go into the homes and do the work that you're asking, they need to get more than $15 or $16 an hour, which is all they were getting at that time, and they had to pay their gas over that. And the turnover, like my mother-in-law probably had a dozen different homemakers in the 7 years she was there. It needs to be done. Housing in general. Now this area is pretty well off, relatively speaking, to say Fredericton, Moncton, St. John, whatever. A lot of us are very fortunate to own our own homes. Much harder percentage probably than other places. Some of them have been passed down from generation to generation for quite a while. But you know, now people are having, especially elder people, they're having trouble with upkeep and maintenance and property taxes and everything else that goes with that. A little help to make sure that some of any needed repair or something was done. If there was something in place to have somebody to go around and make sure that they were shoveled out in the winter time, just these little things would make a world of difference for these people. And you know, but as far as other housing, there's a lot of pressure there, and some of it can be fixed, and some of it I think will have to work itself out. There's not enough housing being built for the increase in the population that's going on. That has resulted in prices going up, which has been a real challenge. A friend of mine in Fredericton works with the homeless. She told me the last time I was speaking to her that this winter, the number of homeless people in Fredericton had shot up from when I first met her in 2018. There's about 90 homeless people. That's truly homeless, no place to go, not couch surfing or anything. These were on the street. Had gone from 90 to 300. And she also said that for the first time in her life, and she'd been working with these people for a long time, she was seeing seniors out there on the street, Fredericton, last winter, living there, no addiction issues, no mental health issues, none of this. They were on the street for one reason and one reason alone. They could not find an affordable place to live in Fredericton at all. And that's got to be addressed. There's got to be more low-income housing being built. That's got to be a priority. NB Housing has a number of units in this province that have not been repaired. They said they didn't have the money. At last I heard, when I was down there, it was something like 200 or 300, 400 units that NB Housing had that were empty because they needed renovated from the previous tenant before they could put a new tenant in, and the government was not investing in doing the renovations so that these units could go back on and be available to people. That's got to change. We have them. Taxpayers own them. The province has them. Fix them. Use them. Give them to people that need it. Don't let those resources waste. Just sit idle. It's a shame. But again, it comes back to priorities and what's important to a government. And we've got to put more priorities on people and less on other things because people matter. And they're, you know, it's a rough go for a lot of people in this province. And housing is one of them. Lower the property taxes for seniors. They paid taxes all their life. Give them a break. Just, you know, help them out a little bit.
You mentioned the NB housing, absolutely. What's more important, the bottom dollar sometimes, or investing in the people? You know what? Sometimes the bottom dollar doesn't matter when it comes to having a house. So that's part of security. If you don't have a place to live, you've got no security. That's not good. It's not funny. Concerning building new houses, I know we've committed to taking, you know, the PST off of all new multi-home builds that are meant for, you know, multi-home dwellings. That's a big deal. They get more construction people actually building more homes for people. Tax reform, absolutely. There's got to be more than the current tax structure because when you get older, you may want to defer taxes. You know, when you're getting older, you know, and you're on a fixed income. These are things that we've committed to actually address once we actually get into power, hope we get into power. So we have the ability of actually tackling the complete tax reform for, well, actually municipalities, you know, I mean, there's a lot of things that need to take care of. But without this, you know, when you get your $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 tax bill, you know, and some are considerably higher, some are pretty low, but a lot of them are higher, and also having taxes predictable. You know, we don't like seeing surprises. Surprising is no good. Just like housing. You know what? When you have rent caps in place, so you can manage your rent. You know what? You're not going to be evicted by another company coming in, raising your rent. All of a sudden, you've got no place to live, and that is happening all over the province. So I mean, there's, you know, Sterling talked about a lot of things, but there's also, like I say, we have to address, you know, where people are currently living and keeping them at home. Elderly care, we need more beds. We need more beds that are not in the hospital, but are in your special care homes. You know, there's a journey sometimes in life. You know, you don't want to be, I mean, living at the hospital would be like torture. I can't imagine it, that, you know, the lights be awful. You know, you need to be in a place that, you know, has personal support workers. Or if you're living at home and you can't do it yourself, once again, your personal support workers. I mean, I'm kind of part of that little aspect because we train personal support workers in the Atlantic College of Applied Health Sciences. You know, they have to be competent, capable, trustworthy. They have to be credited, because if they're not, and this is something that is going to be regulated at some point in time to make sure they have the credentials. So when they get their credentials, like a nurse, there's a certain minimum pay level. You know, because right now it's kind of a free-for-all. Some people desperate for work, you don't know what you're going to get. But if they got the credentials, and you know that they know how to dress, they know how to cook, they know how to lift people, they know how to, well, show up on time, you know, takes it, you know, they're trustworthy, bondable. That's a big deal because, you know, these PSWs, they have to be in a position of trust, and they have to be trustworthy and bondable. Keeping people home, no question. Nobody wants to leave their home. That's your home. But sometimes there's times where you have to move out of your home. I've had to go through journeys with my mom, moving from the big house to a smaller spot, and then, I mean, unfortunately, my mom left me, and that's as far as we had to go. We didn't have to go into a nursing home. We didn't have to go through those challenges. You know, your wage, they say about 30% of your wage should be going to housing, not 60%. We've got to get things back to where we can actually afford New Brunswick. New Brunswickers need to be able to live here on the ground where we grew up. You know, when we sell houses, you know, big business comes in, they buy, you know, our houses in New Brunswick, and all of a sudden they pay way too much money for a homestead. All of a sudden it's a $2 million house that we wouldn't pay $200,000 for it there. Well then, you know, there's where the property tax assessment guys that come in, they say it's gonna go way up. But you know what? You live right next door to that. And you're getting the exact same services. That has to be addressed. Your property tax shouldn't go up astronomically because your house hasn't changed. So there's a lot of things we can take a look at, and we have to address this, and this comes to tax reform. Healthcare components, affordability, but you know what? You know, taking the tax, like I said earlier, off of new builds, because we need to build a lot of houses for the newcomers and the people that are here. Or when you're downsizing, selling your house, you have to be able to find an apartment that is manageable. My mom went from a big house to a garden suite home. That saved a lot of stress because, well, first off, I didn't have to go mow the grass because that kind of got taken care of. I didn't have to plow her driveway because that got taken care of because where it was at. And she lived longer with less stress. And stress is what will kill you first. Money stress, food stress, housing stress. We've got things in our platform that are addressing most of those things, not necessarily all of them. There's to where communication will make that happen. So lowering the taxes on households, is a big deal. Taking the tax off of new builds, that's a big deal. And, you know, support workers are a big deal. So that's kind of like tying into healthcare and housing. Thank you.
Just as a thought, approximately about a year ago, I worked fairly closely with the Special Care Home Association, and at one point, about a year ago, it was like 700 to 800 empty special care home beds in the province. Now, I think the argument was that perhaps some of the people in the hospital were of a higher need than what these special care homes could provide, but the spaces were there if something could have perhaps been worked out. Next question. As stated previously, Lakeland Ridges has approximately 2,600 residents. Now, assuming that municipal reform is going to come at some point in time, okay, the question is, what can a small rural municipality like Lakeland Ridges do to expand its tax base? Chris, this is your round.
Well, jeez. We never got any of these beforehand, so you know, it's something like, how can you extend your tax base? Are there any industries or businesses you're looking at moving in? I mean,
That's what we're asking.
you know, listen.
What are your thoughts?
Well, on a small scale, we got to start opening up for maybe some better data communication, some cell phone towers, some internet service, because there are a lot of home-based high-tech companies. I mean, I've had some multi-million I've actually had two, just down the street from me. They started out in a household, and they sold their company for, well, a lot of money, millions of dollars. A small home-based tech company, they can expand and grow. We're talking deal with Panasonic and McDonald's and a bunch of other stuff. But I would have to reach back out to you guys. How can you expand your base? It boils down to industry. Industry. You've got your woods, you get your forestry. You know what? You get your mechanic, machinist. You've got, I work with, got several companies in the region myself. We had a company that actually rented one of my buildings. It was a manufacturing company. They built sawmills. They recently purchased a business, I don't want to say names, but they've got the business up in Woodstock, and, they built the big axe, I'm just trying to hint to who it is. But I tell you, I was able to recruit a company from the States to come to our region because of talent. We get your machinists, we got your engineers, we've got the skill set here. That's really going to boil down to what do we want to bring here. I'm not a big fan of buying new business. In essence, paying people to come here. I want them to find this place as a place to expand or grow. And we're talking, the companies that I was kind of alluding to, they build big sawmills that they sell all over North America. And their main office is in the States, but they came here to New Brunswick, to Meductic area, and good solid paying jobs. So that's what I've done in my little world. But really, I've got to reach back out to the community. What do you want to see here? You know what? Do you want a big mine? Well, a lot of people are going to say no to that. What do you want to do here? This is going to be a few. Do you want to go to forestry? Forestry's fantastic. Who's cutting? Woodlot owners, private woodlot owners. But that's what we've got. Hard to bring fisheries out here. That's a challenge because, we don't have the ocean right here. I would need some advice on that from you. This is your home. This is the Lakeland rural community. You've got Great Lakes, tourism. This is something. But once again, different traffic, different people. What do you want to see in your community? And that's how you as citizens guide your council. Or if ideas are brought, that's what they come to council for, to talk about it. There's all kinds of great ideas a person can come up with, but what are feasible and what are your neighbors going to want? So that's a tough answer for anybody. I wish we would have had a little more time to actually do a little research on that. But I tell you, that's a rough one because I personally don't live right here. I know we have some great breakfasts. We got Sabine here. Now, Sabine's a fantastic organization. They employ a lot of people. What other industries that can be brought here because land is cheaper out here. Bringing companies in from out west to here, setting up headquarters, we have a lot to offer. Except good high-speed internet and good cell phone signals out here at this stage. But that's got to be addressed. I don't have a good answer on that one. All up to you.
You're right about the cell phone service.
Yeah.
Every time I go towards Fosterville, I pick up an American tower and it takes me 10 months. But as far as economic development, I've got a lot of confidence and a lot of faith in entrepreneurship and the ability of the people in this region and throughout New Brunswick to succeed in business if they have a fair chance. The number of businesses potentially is probably endless, but the ideas for those, I would set up some funding for these companies for new starts. Get your business plan. You got an idea that's going to make some money, create some jobs, bring it. They used to have agencies like this. They seem to have gone by the wayside a little bit, but entrepreneurship is critical. The ideas, I think, are out there. Tourism, forestry related. With forestry, perhaps you got to maybe get beyond the traditional and start thinking of different ways of using the resources that we have. I know that there are people, especially young people, who probably have some ideas, right now, that are saying, well, geez, I'd love to do this if only. Well, the government should be there to provide the if only. They should be there to provide the expertise, to provide, any technical things or questions that they might have as they're putting their business plans and their plan together to start and operate their own business. They should be mentors. They should provide new business with mentorship, and they should provide them with a little financial help. where it's warranted, so that they can get their feet under them for a period of time. And every business needs 2 or 3 years to really get their feet under them and figure out what the heck's going on. After that, you know, they do an assessment and stuff. If the idea was as good as it appeared to be on paper in the beginning, in 3 or 4 years' time, you should be able to see, if you're not profitable, you should at least be able to see some light at the end of the tunnel. You could go back and have another look, maybe give them some additional funding or whatever. Every time you do this, it's not gonna succeed. You're gonna have failures, but you're gonna have successes. But you invest in your people. And the entrepreneurs, and those who wanna do things and expand maybe what they already have. Tourism out here, I would think that there would be possibilities for tourism here are endless, because it's probably one of the nicest places in the province to come and see, but we need more things to draw people. We need, you know, the lakes out here. Canterbury was not a gateway to the lakes for nothing. You go up past Canterbury and you go to where you go out on Blaine's that's King's Highway there, and there's a lot of lakes out there and a lot of beauty. And I'm sure there are people around those lakes who live there year round or whatever, who have said, you know, I would like to do this or I would like to do that, but. Well, it's that but. They need to be able to go to government or go to MLA and say, look, I got this idea, but I'm stuck. I don't know where to go with it. The MLA, I think, can play an important role to point that person in the right direction, connect them with the right people, so that they can round out these ideas, do a good business plan, see if it's actually feasible, and if it is in fact feasible, help them, invest in them a little bit, help them get their feet under them, get going, then the growth will come. They might start out with 2 or 3 employees, maybe 4 or 5 years down the road they have 6 or 8, who knows? You know, in a small community like this, in Moncton, 10 jobs is nothing, right? In Meductic or Canterbury, 10 full-time jobs, decent paying jobs, are a lot. And if you times that by 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, all of a sudden you got 30, 40. You know, maybe Brad down there has some ideas, he wants to do something. Well, great, come talk to me. You know, let's sit down, figure out if we can make this work. So, you know, you gotta deal with, I believe the human resources are here. I just think that they lack the support and possibly, you know, they just don't know. They know what they'd like to do, they've got a pretty good idea how they wanna do it, but they need to be brought together with some other people so that they can flesh out these ideas, you know, put pen to paper kind of thing. If it, again, you know, if it makes sense, let's take it, let's go with it. And that's when as an MLA, that's when I would push to get the right doors open, so that these young people especially can have the opportunity to take this and to run with it and to see if they can make it go. And yes, there will be some failures, but there'll be successes too, and we'll benefit from those successes.
Ignite, NB, and ACOA are the 2 departments that deal with that now.
Yep, they don't do a very good job.
Yeah, but we've seen a lot of them fail, but that's what we've got to work with now.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. Next question. One of the more expensive services, responsibilities at Lakeland, and I would assume all municipalities, but it seems to be really on the small ones it's becoming a bit of an issue, is maintaining infrastructure such as municipal buildings, roads, parks, etc. Lakeland, for instance, we've got to do some major renovations on the groundwork around parks next summer. We had a sewage system just down over the hill, just bang, went kaput on us. So the question is, what are your thoughts on how you and your government could help small rural municipalities to avoid deteriorating infrastructure? You go first.
Well, most of our communities here have just about as minimum basic infrastructure as you can possibly get away with. It needs to be upgraded, and part of this whole municipal thing that scared me the most was, okay, you know, are we gonna be thrown to the wolves so that we have to pay for everything? Because we couldn't do it. The government still has a responsibility, provincial government still has a responsibility to work with communities. Basic needs, you know, like water and sewage, that kind of thing, that's pretty basic. That's pretty basic. And if the municipality cannot afford to fund it on their own, the province needs to step up. They need to step up and help, because what's the alternative? There is no alternative. You have to have it. People have to have proper sewage, they have to have proper water, safe drinking water. So the government, we knew at the time that the biggest aspect of this whole amalgamation kerfuffle was to download costs. Well, you can't just wipe your hands of it and walk away. You still have responsibilities, you still have responsibilities to people. So when something comes up on a critical issue like sewage, or anything like that, or water, if the municipality doesn't have the resources, and a lot of them won't, the province still has a responsibility to make sure that those services are available to every New Brunswicker, and they need to step up if the needs are. It's simple as that. You know, you can't fool around with that. You can't have an MLA that'll say, well, I'll go down there and I'll try to talk to so-and-so or whatever. No, you go down and say, this is what we need, and this is when we need it, and how soon can you do it? And then you go from there.
$1 billion surplus, a $750-some-odd-thousand surplus, and we're starving. Absolutely. You know what? Our healthcare, our buildings, our hospitals, I mean, the building we're in could probably use a little maintenance. You know what? It's absolutely. When the roof is leaking, sometimes you don't want to put a double payment down on your mortgage. You gotta fix the roof. You have to. If you don't do that, you'll have nothing to show for it. You know what? It's great to pay down the debt, but with no assets on the other side, we have a problem. So yes, you know, it really boils down to municipal, provincial partners working together. And look what's going on. I'm gonna make a point of reference to what's going on in Sussex, town of Sussex. They get a flood. It costs so many millions of dollars of damage taking place every time they have a flood. Well, you know what? I think it was $30 million. I don't remember the number, but it would long term. You know, they had to get the provincial, and it still hasn't happened yet. The commitment from the provincial government, the municipal government wants to come into play, and the federal governments are at the table to mitigate those issues. Like they've got to fix the flooding issue. Well, when you've got to spend millions and millions of dollars rectifying a problem versus just repairing it, I'd rather invest into repairing the problem permanently versus just patching it. And that's what's been going on. So right now, there's a commitment out there that needs to be addressed. And that's why Bruce Northrup is running for Liberal Party up in that area. We've got to invest in your municipalities, in the infrastructure to protect our citizens. You know, if sewage goes out, yes, you know, it has to flow downhill, because when it starts coming back up, that's no good. You know what, if you have a structure that you need, I mean, Lakeland Rural Community, Lakeland Ridges, it's got several nice buildings. Some are privately owned, but you've got some great buildings that are owned by the municipality. If they're not being maintained, you might as well flatten them and move along. You know what, because if it's deemed dangerous, that's no good. Investment, maintenance, things last a long time. Truly, it's a community request. It comes from the municipalities. If funding's needed, there's actually money there when you have billion-dollar surpluses. Or, you know what, times of convenience. You know what, they say, oh, you know, this current government said about 2 months ago, we're gonna be in deficit $200,000, and then 2 weeks later, because it's convenient, we get a $500 million surplus. How's that happen overnight? We've got to invest into our people and our communities, just like we need to invest into our hospitals and healthcare. We have to focus a lot of this stuff back on the people, because the bottom line is very important, managing budgets. But you have to look at the long-term success of a community. This building's very important to this community here. This is where you have a lot of your gatherings. This is where people come together to do stuff like this. You've got a great one up in Canterbury, and you've got one up in Fosterville. I mean, you get some great buildings. Fosterville one's, I think it's privately owned now. But you know what? Without these buildings, without the infrastructure, I mean, your fire hall is right here. I mean, we need this building bad. If there was a leak here, it has to be fixed. If it's within the budget, it doesn't matter. It still has to be fixed. Hate to see municipalities go into debt, because I don't think municipalities can. They've got to work within their budgets. That's dictated by the provincial government. But good budget management is huge. We got to take care of our infrastructure if we expect to bring businesses in, if we expect to have people move in our community. So it's kind of a symbiotic thing. It's like a dominoes effect. No infrastructure, who's gonna come? If infrastructure leaves, why are people gonna move in? We have a challenge like that up in Nackaway. The bank is gone. That's a problem. That's a problem to a lot of people. We wanna see services come into town, not move out of town. And that boils down into investment. Provincially, municipally, and federally. We all have to work together.
Thank you. Two more questions here, guys, and then I'll open it up to the public and start that lady right there, or we open it up. Leasing in rural municipalities is a problem. Like I know over in North Lake, I assume the RCMP are over there, but you very seldom see the RCMP over there. There's been some talk around the province, provincial police force, do we continue with the RCMP? We'd just like to have your two opinions tonight, is what do you think the best option would be? Continue with the RCMP, a provincial police force, or perhaps even a regional police force of some kind? And Chris, I think we start with you first.
Okay. Just thinking of a person's name, I gotta think about it. Andrew Harvey made a request to potentially have their own regional police force, and that was shut down by the province. Well, you know what, right now, the RCMP are underfunded, big time. Recruitment is a challenge also there, because underfunding. Listen, out here in rural New Brunswick, I mean, I live in rural New Brunswick, you know, I mean, we have other challenges. You know what? There are some drug houses. I stumbled into a couple of them along my travels. You know, you probably rented them too. Big dogs. You know, it's there's challenges here. There's a lot of break-ins. You know what? And can you have cameras on everything? No, you can't. You know what? They're responding to emergencies, but we're not getting the same amount of drive-bys, stopping in. We need to really increase funding either to the RCMP or really look at, you know, a regional police force. This is gonna take, once again, collaboratory conversations. The province really wants to see RCMP. Well, you know what? City of Fredericton has their own police force, and within the city of Fredericton and the outskirts, they're starting to use, you know, the Fredericton Police Force because it's locally managed. I don't have that direct answer yet because I'm not in the police force. I may deal with cybercrime, but you know, because my background's in IT infrastructure and business. But you know what? Andrew Harvey looked into that thing pretty hard, and there's probably room to dive into that a little further, but that's going to boil down to more so of funding. So I'd like to see something happen better than what's going on here now, but until we get more officers on the ground, cars driving, but that also, you know, our policing, we also need so much more than that. We need ambulances, you know, there's a whole scope to just this. But policing, we need more people in cars, on the road, driving by our streets, going out the backwoods. There's a lot of staging areas when things get stolen. We've had a lot of that stuff going on in our in down Macquac area. They steal vehicles, they stage them out in the woods someplace for several weeks till things cool down, and then they go park them out, break them, or they're just joyriding, things like that. On top of that, when individuals are caught, you know what, if they're underage, that's a challenge. That's where a lot of this stuff is taking place. If they're caught, they do need to go through the system and not given just a slap on the wrist. It's too much money, too much investment, you know, that we're losing. You know, I mean, when you put your hard-earned money, time, energy into your property, and somebody comes in, steals your car, destroys it, and then you've got to go to your insurance company. This is what's happened, and your rates go up. That's no good. That's not fun. That's not funny. Or if you don't have insurance on your vehicle, PLPD, well, I tell you, it's stolen, it's just gone. This has been happening quite a bit. We need more drive-bys, we need more engagement, just not when the crimes are taking place, but having our police officers come out to things like this, having one-on-ones with the community. Just not as a big growling pest, but let's find solutions. There was a town hall meeting. Mr. Ames was at that one, you know, but it turned into a bit of a growl fest to where the police were saying, well, we are underfunded. We need help from the province. They gotta step up. We have to step up with $1 billion surplus. We gotta spend it where it needs it.
Well, everybody knows that crime is on the rise. It's no surprise to anybody. People no longer feel safe in their homes quite often, especially the elderly. There's probably as many different reasons for crime as there is types of crime. Some of it is to feed addictions and that kind of thing, others mental health issues. Some of it is just, you know, crime for crime's sake. The RCMP themselves, there are not enough of them. I don't know if we can get enough of them. It's one thing to, as the province, to say, I want an additional 50 police officers. I think the Minister of Public Safety made that promise in the last budget. The only problem with that is like almost everything else in the budget, they couldn't deliver. I've talked to RCMP officers, most of you would know these young men, a couple of them. The RCMP is having an incredible problem with recruitment and retention, just like a lot of other places. So they're challenged just to meet what the province was already committed to provide, never mind any more additional. So how much help we can get, more additional help we can get from the RCMP, I don't know, because I don't know if they have it to give us. Regional policing, you get into areas where you have some fairly sizable communities relatively close, like you have down in you know, with Quispan, Sis, and Rossane, places like that, where there's a fairly dense population, a good tax base, that kind of thing. It might work. It does work. They have it. Out here where we are, a regional police force. Well, who else is going to be in the region with us? You know, Nakwik, Woodstock. I don't know. That's something that as communities we'll have to sit down and try to figure out. I don't know what the answer is, I'll be honest with you. Obviously the status quo is not working. But as to how we go or what path to take, if it's more RCMP, then we have to pay more. The province is going to have to step up and the RCMP is going to have to be able to provide it. And I think that's going to be a big challenge for both of them. Regional policing, again, you know, like can Lakeland Ridges have a police force? Probably not. And again, if we do, would it be Woodstock? I don't know. I know where I live. I've lived there since 1985. I can count the number of police cars I've seen that on that road on one hand, and one of them was lost. So you know, I don't know. And the other one was when the highway patrol was here, and I don't think he knew where he was going either because it's a dead end. So I don't know. It's complicated, right? It is. It's not adequate the way it is. But the solution, I think, you got to have a number of parties, the municipalities, the provincial government, working together and saying, look, okay, first of all, what are your expectations? What's the minimum amount of policemen that you feel comfortable with? Okay, we know what that is. How much is it going to cost? Okay, they could probably come up with a figure for that too. Here's the crunch. How are you going to pay for it? Is the municipality going to pay for it? Well, we probably wouldn't want them. It's pretty expensive. This is something else. These are essential services. There's services and there's essential services. We all pay taxes. We pay taxes on everything. And then when they're done, you taxes again. And when we die, they take another little poke at us. We pay taxes to have services, basically, primarily. That's why taxes were invented, to provide services to people. It wasn't meant to do this, that, or the other thing. We paid taxes for roads, we paid taxes for bridges, we paid taxes for schools and hospitals, and we pay it for public safety. Province has the money. It's a matter of priorities. You know, what is this government's priorities? Is it public safety? Or is it gutting the environmental fund to pay off our share of the carbon tax? I don't know. You know, every government's different. What's the priority? The priority has to be, again, it has to be people. And part of that is public safety, so, you know, they're gonna have to meet us at the table and provide the assistance that's gonna be needed for, if we expect to have anything close to adequate policing. It'll probably be the RCMP. Myself personally, I don't see the feasibility of a regional police force for Lakeland Ridges. Again, you know, I beg the question, who do we, it's quite a ways to Woodstock, quite a ways to Naquit too. I'm not sure how often we'd see a cruiser up there if there was a regional police force, to be absolutely honest with you. So the RCMP is probably the option, but we can't afford it, quite frankly, without more assistance from the provincial government. They need to pay more of the cost. Policing is incredibly expensive, absolutely necessary, and we can't afford it. So they have to step up, they have to help, they have to do more. Because people need to feel safe in their homes. The other part of crime is, you know, start addressing the causes of crime, like I said, the addiction, and the mental health issues and stuff. Start putting money into that. Nip it in the bud. Like, before it becomes a problem, fix it. Stitch in time saves nine. My grandmother told me that so many times, it wasn't even funny. She told me some other things too, I can't repeat here, but you know, it's the judges, the courts, I feel bad for them. I feel bad for the police. They apprehend people for these petty crimes, whatever. They do their job to the best of their ability. They go into the court system, the next day they're out on the street, the next night they're doing it again. It's just a big revolving, like, there's gotta be some resolution there. If it's serious crime or whatever, they need to be held accountable. If it's because of an addiction issue or something like that, they need the help. So it's not just boots on the ground, it's a whole bunch of things that come together, you know, and we have to address each and every one of them to the best of our ability and try to make it work, and it's gonna be a challenge. Like everything else, all we talk about here tonight is challenges. Yeah, we have a lot of them. We have a lot of challenges. But we also have a government that has the resources to not use them properly. So let's put the resources where it's needed, alleviate some of these challenges, and see if we can't put ourselves on a path that's more positive than the one we're on. Because the one we're on is not working for 2 minutes.
Okay, last official question, folks. And this one here was, we, again, wasn't quite sure it was supposed to be put on, but it's one that might come out of the blue a little bit to people.
What's that?
Yeah, these are the kind, eh? The Minister of Transportation a few months ago said that there was a possibility that a new DOT garage could be built in Canterbury. Now, the question that the municipality has is, we have one in Quebec, we have one in Canterbury, and I believe the one in Canterbury is shut down for half the year, is it, summer?
Well, actually, building's condemned, I heard.
Okay, well, the question is, if a new DOT garage were to be built, should it be built in either community or should it be a shared building? And I think you go first.
Anytime a community loses something, whether it's a school or a government garage, bank, or anything, that community and everybody in it is much poorer. And this community of Lakeland Ridges over the years has lost a lot. So when you lose something like that government garage, there's an impact there. I was talking to a gentleman that lives in Canterbury, and he was telling me that he was the only full-time DTI employee that was up there from this area. The only one left. Everybody else is from somewhere else or seasonal. There's a lot of seasonal because it's cheaper. The garage, we're a fairly big area. I'm not sure we can get by with just the one garage. So, you know, given the distance, if you dispatch plows from the back in the morning, how long are they going to be before they get to Forest City or to, you know, wherever? It's a big area, right? So we probably need more than one. There was one in Canterbury. It is condemned. As to where a new one should be, again, you know, that's the conversation first and foremost that the council should have. Where do you want it? Once you decide where you want it, then come back and talk to me if I'm your MLA, and then we'll see what we can do. There's a lot of, they talk about amalgamation. I don't think it's happened yet. And government certainly hasn't made it easy. I'll go back to what I said in the beginning. This whole amalgamation thing is, I don't know who laid that egg, but boys, oh boy, they didn't put much thought into it. And now we're paying for it. We're all paying for it. We're not getting good services. We're very unsure what to do. We don't know how we're gonna move forward because you haven't been told how you're gonna move forward. And if you do try to move forward, then you gotta answer to somebody else because guess what? You didn't have the authority you thought you had, and you don't have the money you thought you had. Because the Regional Service Commission has been mandated to do this and somebody else has been mandated to do that. And, so the decision making, but we have to come together regardless, we live here, we're all neighbors, I don't care where you live, I don't care if it's Fosterville, Quebec, Canberra, Meductic, whatever. We're neighbors, we have always gotten along, for the most part, very well. And this is, a lot of what's going on right now has been very divisive, and that is unfortunate, because we are neighbors, we still all care about each other, I believe, deep down, I don't doubt that for a minute. But we have to get this whole amalgamation thing straightened out and going so that it's working for everybody. They sit down, it should be their responsibility to make the decision as to where it should be or what they need. Then they take it to their MLA, who will take it to the government, and we'll see what we can do to get it. But I don't think one's enough. I don't think the one in Quebec, I don't think it's enough. I think we need more than one. It's a big area, no question about it. But all I can say is, look, if I get the credit, and you tell me where you want it, and I'll fight like hell to get it.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay,
Did I take too long?
I got what?
basically what it was the Minister of Transportation back in June said that there was a possibility for a new DOT garage in Canada. We have one in Quebec, and the question was, if a new one were to be built, should it be built for both communities, or as Sterling, I think, was suggesting, it should be built back in Canada?
We should ask the chair that's empty. You know, that's what we should ask, because that's our current sitting.
I'm kind of over in a couple of weeks to stay.
Yeah. Okay, so you know what, not knowing all the information, I would perceive with a lot of amalgamations, potentially one big one. Because the trucks are on the road, and I'm saying this out of what my gut says without knowing any of the information. Location, I have no idea. That has to come from you people. But you know what? The trucks on the road, when they leave. They travel, they plow, they salt, they sand, they come back, they get the refills. I mean, I've traveled a lot of roads out in this neck of the woods. I tell you, if you had, it's all, I feel because of the size of Lakeland rural community, having one real strong DTI location might take care of the whole area better than having two little ones, because if there becomes cuts in the future, they gotta choose one. But if you have one strong one, they've gotta keep it going. And that is investment into it, they gotta build one. But I don't know that, I haven't talked about it, I've only heard, we like to have the one in Canterbury open up again. Great, wonderful. Is that the best spot for it? That's what I've got on the road, that's it. So I'm limited knowledge on that one, but I'm thinking, like say, when you have a school infrastructure and a daycare, and you know what, maybe, some other facilities there, after school programs going on, that creates a hub of success. If you have a strong DTI location, that might breed it for strong success in that area, and making sure that people can come in, go to work and leave. Multiple locations, multiple structures, that would potentially add better investment, versus multiple buildings. So, you know what? Too early to answer that one. But my gut says one strong central one, because I mean, from one end of this riding to the other is an hour. So when you're up in Lakeland rural community, from one end to the other, it's it's half an hour from one side to the other, maybe give or take a minute or two, but it's kind of that same demographics. I mean, you do have a lot of little side roads when I'm thinking of plowing, you're sanding, salting, need more information. That's my answer.
That's fair enough.
Okay, other than we give these two gentlemen a chance at the end to sort of, again, why should your party take us in? But if folks have some individual questions now to each person, starting with you.
Well, I just want to clarify, I enjoyed having that clinic, and what was the actual reason, just to prevent it happening again, why did did she have to close? Was the doctor overwhelmed or was it funded not properly? So does anyone know the actual reason it did close down? Because many of us benefit from that.
Okay, I've heard scuttlebutt, but I truly think the biggest reason that she shut down was that she got overwhelmed with the work that was taking place. And I believe one of these gentlemen tonight had said that perhaps if Dr. O'Leary had had some secretarial administrative help, that would have helped the situation a whole lot. But I other than the scuttlebutt you hear, and I'm not going into scuttlebutt, it just got overloaded. When you have people coming in from Fredericton, and then you have to do all the paperwork for all of those people, each person that you see. And I think what happened is a lot of those patients that Dr. O'Leary took on, she didn't really need in her full-time practice, but she now has quite a few of them in her full-time practice because she couldn't, again, my understanding, some pretty serious issues were coming into this little after-hours clinic that people were looking for.
Yeah, the administrative work, this picture, I've talked to numerous doctors, and my wife happens to be studying this stuff, so I get some real information. Typically, I have an 8-hour day, minimum 2, typically 3 hours of pure paperwork, and that means sending faxes to get MRIs done. I mean, they still use fax machines, for the love of God. You know what, I mean, paperwork, follow up, follow through. You need some administrative assistance for that, so the doctors can do doctor things, your nurses can do nurses. You don't need your doctor to take your blood pressure. That can be done by a nurse practitioner, literally in a heartbeat. Having the right team working together to offset those tedious tasks that interfere with, real patient care. Doctors need to be looking after people, nurses looking after people, administrative assistants, which is probably the key factor of these collaboratory healthcare clinics, taking the paper burden off of the people actually doing the job.
Probably wouldn't come to it as a surprise to any of us, but that paperwork, that administrative part of the job of practicing medicine has probably grown, well, not probably, it has grown exponentially over the years. And it does take an immense amount of time away from the doctor from being able to do what he or she should be doing, which is actually dealing with patients. So absolutely, some sort of an approach to the clinic style, or they want a workplace where you do your job and I'll do mine. Have somebody come in, you register, right? They put you in a room, somebody else comes in and takes your blood pressure. It doesn't have to be a doctor, right? And then the doctor comes in and they see you, they go out, then they would pass that paperwork off to somebody else who would book the appointments for blood work, who would put you down on the waiting list for an MRI or whatever. And these kind of collective teams, basically a team approach, would probably deliver far more efficient medicine than what we're getting today.
I'll add one thing, it's the IT infrastructure behind it also. So that's my background, IT infrastructure. So that's what I'd be bringing to the table for this component, because the quantity of double entry is once again ridiculous. We've had, and this is a real story, a doctor in Lakeland sent to request to get an MRI done by fax 1, 2, 3, 4 times. They lost it. Finally took the 5th time. What should have taken place in 2 days took 6 weeks. No audit trail. Who picked up the fax and lost it? Well, there's where we got to get up to the times, and this is a real thing that's taking place out there. So IT infrastructure with these new clinics is mandatory, so you don't have to do the double entries, and there's an actual audit trail of where it's going, and they're working off the same database, so you don't have to re-look up your information on a continual basis or refill out that same form when you walk in the second time. Yes, I still have this. Yes, I still have that. And, it's a lot of the IT infrastructure needs to take place. There you go, I'm done.
You boys just remember, if one of you make Fredericton, sometimes over here fax machines still work better than the internet.
That's a perfect fax machine. That's
Yeah.
what you said.
Any other questions from anyone? Now's your chance, folks.
I would just like to make a comment on transportation. Excuse me, I got a cold, I talk about it, but 90% of transportation work here in this province should be contracted out. They got great big trucks and paying major overtime when a contractor could do it much quicker and much better. It needs to be contracted out. Another thing is the school buses, they should be contracted out. Because they can get drivers for them, and give people a chance to get rid of them great big old school buses and give a private person with a van. It would be very simple and very easy to do. But the transportation, the snow removal and all that, it should be done by contractors, because this whole community, this Carleton-York is full of contractors that can do that work and do it easier and do it cheaper. So it's worth talking about.
I think that's what they do over in Maine in a lot of cases.
Yes. Sure.
Any other questions, folks? All right.
Game must be on.
Pardon me?
Hockey game must be on.
Well, as long as I'm back with the third period. If you're a Maple Leaf fan, it's that third period, eh? Chris started first, so I guess we would give Sterling the opportunity. Is why should we put Mr. Wright down in Fredericton?
Well, excuse the work. But, but, no, I've been kicking around politics in this province for what seems like a couple of lifetimes. And, for me, it has always been, about giving back, about service to people. And for me, that is all it's about. I'm 67 years old. It's a little late in life to start a new career, right? But I'm sick and tired of this place not having a voice, and an effective voice, and one that will actually, you know, I've been told I'm a little rough around the edges sometimes. I don't believe it, but I've been told that I'm a little rough around the edges sometimes. Well, sometimes you have to be to get results. We've been taken for granted. We've been ignored. We've been, you know, just totally overlooked. The roads here are a disgrace. You go down, you know, other places and stuff, they seem to manage to get the roads done. I go to work in the morning, Beth goes to work in the morning, we get up in the winter time, the road's not plowed, we got a good vehicle for that, you need it in New Brunswick. We come home at night, sometimes it's still not plowed. Is that acceptable? No. What happens if an ambulance has to get up that road or something? We're not getting even the basics of what we should be, either in terms of service or in representation, and that needs to change, but the only one that can change that are you. I can't change it. You can change it by sending somebody down there who will then, you know, work on your behalf. You deserve a real voice. I don't feel that you have one. I don't feel that we've had a really particularly good one this riding for quite a while, and we're long overdue. And I would be that voice. I'm not shy. I haven't blushed in 30 years. You know, if I have to go down there and you know, make somebody's face turn a little red, I'm okay with that. But I'm also willing to work with people, and I'm reasonably, I was going to say very good. I'm reasonably good at working with people. I try to see things from all sides. I try to be realistic. I've been in business for myself. I know that we can do better than what we're doing. I'm absolutely sure of that. And I would welcome the opportunity to get down there. I told people in July when I started this little trip that I was going to apply for a job. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm applying to you for a job. I want you to hire me to be your voice in Fredericton. And if I'm successful, I will, you know, I will do my utmost always for this riding. I've lived here. I loved it. I'm here by choice. I raised my family here. This area is everything to me. It's the only thing that matters to me. I would do my very best. And in 4 years' time, if I didn't do a good job, vote me out. In this province, we have a habit of voting, you know, one way or the other way, to the point where it's a little bit ridiculous by times, because quite often, the best person for a job is not getting the job. So we got to move beyond that. We got to start putting our families first, our communities first. We got to start putting our critical needs first, and we got to send a voice down there that is focused on achieving as much as he possibly can for our communities and for our families and for this riding. And we'll give it a shot. No, and I'm pretty determined. Thank you. I really appreciate you coming in.
Well, thank you for having this forum, and thanks for everyone coming in. Sterling, thanks for showing up. Sorry, the moment there. You know what? I'm a consideration. 55 years old. I got about 10 or 12 years I want to put into this. I'm out there. I've been in the private sector my whole life. Really enjoy the community. You know, I enjoy the events. You know, but I also am really disappointed to how we've been represented. Terribly. It's an example, a perfect example of how we've been represented here tonight. It's empty. That's shameful. That's disgraceful. That's disrespectful to each and every one of you. Because this is our job. Compliments for coming out. We have to do this. Now, with experience, I'm an IT infrastructure background, business background. We're in it. Negotiations, communications. Sometimes I get a little technical in the way my thought process is, and then I go back, reflect, and then we try and find solutions that are focused on you. I've got a great job already. It's fantastic. I got a great wife, married for 30 years. Kids are doing well. It's taken a lot of work every day. I've taken a hiatus from my own job. I still do it. But you know what? I want to take this energy and stop chasing the job and actually do the job. I want to actually be out there and having this government focus back on us, you, needs to happen. We can do so much better when we don't ignore our phone calls. We do so much better when we respond to emails. We do so much better when we don't ghost the people that are asking for help, which is taking place. This has to stop. You know, solutions. We come up with solutions. That comes through communications. That takes time. What's the problem? You guys on the, this where municipality comes into play. You're on the ground. You're closest to the ground. You bring the problems. Not that you bring the problems. You're bringing the problems, and together we bring the solutions. You bring the, I should have said, you bring the issues. Together we bring solutions. We have to work together. I enjoy the engagement. I've personally knocked on a lot of doors, about 4,300 doors. And if you weren't home, I stuck it in your mailbox, or I stuck it in something. You know, it's a big riding. It's huge. Long driveways. It's a lot. I've been doing this for about 6 months now. 7. Geez, almost 8. 7 months. It's a big riding. And out of all the doors, I've only had 20 real aggressive ones. You know what? People want to change. We want an opportunity to be represented. We want to have a voice. We want better health care. We want security. I have a vision in New Brunswick. A healthy, prosperous, and secure New Brunswick. We can do it with health care, affordability. You know what? We have schools, and here comes a little bit of political stuff. You know what? 1 in 4 kids are going to school hungry. That's a problem. When you go to school hungry, how can you learn? That also boils down to affordability. So having school programs, breakfast and lunch, not just a cheese stick, in a little cup of milk. There's got to be more substance to it. You know what? Taking the Higgs carbon tax off of our gas bill, when you go to the pumps, there's 4 cents that should be going to refineries, but that's offloaded to us. This stuff we can do provincially. That has to happen immediately. Rent caps, once again, making things affordable. That's a big deal. And also true representation. I hate when you have to sue the government for information. This happens too often. Right for information. Why don't you just talk and here's what's going on? We have to be open and truly transparent. Every government talks about it, but now it's time we actually have to walk the walk versus going backwards. And we've gone backwards big time. This last 6 years, big time. Every time you turn around, you got to sue the government. And you know what? A lot of people ask, where does money come from? Well, it comes from you. You know, and we can do better spending. So right now, this government's being sued from numerous different sources. Contractors that we've let down, and I'm gonna use one for an example. The Millennial Bridge in St. John, excuse me, not St. John, and the Miramichi. They were supposed to start contract work on that, but it got politically delayed. So now the company's suing us for about $27 million. What's the cost of us feeding your kids in school for the $27 million? I would rather spend money on the kids and our future versus not following through when a contract should take place. And that's just one of many examples that are taking place. So where's the money come from? Well, it can come from better spending. I want to be part of a change that's focused on us, the people, spending your money on us better, far better than it has. The bottom dollar is, it's your health and safety. Thank you.
All right, on behalf of the Municipal Council, Lakeland, and you folks, I thank you two gentlemen for showing up.
Thank you very much. That's not an alliance.